Good evening, everyone, and thank you for being here. Welcome to Planning Our Solid Waste Management. This is a webinar about solid waste services in Montgomery County. Before I turn things over to the county staff for the presentation, I want to review a few logistics about this webinar for you. First, this meeting is being recorded, and the recording will be made available at the DEP website for those who could not attend or if you need to drop off early. If you would like closed captioning, if you mouse over the screen, you will see a toolbar at the bottom. There is a button about just to the right of the center that says CC Show Captions. And if you click on that, you will get closed captioning. All attendees, except for the speakers, have been muted. You can ask a question at any time by clicking on the QA button on your toolbar. That is to the left of the CC button. It has a question mark inside the box and the letters Q and A. If you click on that, you'll get a window that pops up where you can drop your question in. Staff will answer questions in writing when they can as we go, and we will pause from time to time to address questions verbally throughout the presentation. We may not get to every question this evening, but we will capture what's asked through the recording and create an FAQ for the DEP website. And speaking of questions, we will have a few questions for you during the webinar. When they pop up on screen, I will read them to you, and you can click your answer with your mouse right on the screen, and then we'll be able to show results to you, and then we'll continue with the presentation. On the last slide, you'll see an email address where you can also submit questions if you didn't get a chance to tonight. That email will be available until Friday, March 13th at midnight. Any new questions posed there will be captured for the FAQ at the website. Also, on that slide, we'll have a QR code for a survey that is currently available to you that you can take, and that survey will also be open until March 13th at midnight. Once again, thank you so much for joining us, and now I will turn things over to the County Department of Environmental Protection Director, Jennifer Macedonia. Jennifer, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and welcome to all of you to our virtual open house. I'm Jennifer Macedonia, Director of the county's Department of Environmental Protection. And first, I just want to thank all of you for taking time out of your busy day today to spend it with us to discuss the future of trash in Montgomery County. You are now in our third open house, which the first two took place earlier this week in person, and this is our first virtual open house this week on the topic. And we're hoping to do a couple things tonight. We want to inform you about current and future options for waste and materials management within the county. And we're also looking for your feedback as well as giving you a chance to ask questions and get answers related to our current system and the options in front of us to manage solid waste. And as I mentioned, I'm going to kick it off, and then I'm going to tag team with some members of my fantastic staff at the Department of Environmental Protection here in Montgomery County to walk you through different aspects of the current system, as well as a comparison of options going forward. As Sam mentioned, you're going to have some opportunities to share input in real time, and then also an opportunity to take it all in, process what you hear, and then share with us your feedback on a survey, and I'll share that with you later. But let's go ahead and get started. You can move to the next slide. And I will just say, as a county, we aim to continue providing, hopefully, what you agree to be exceptional, reliable, cost-effective solid waste and materials management services to the county now and in the future. We're also aiming to manage solid waste in an environmentally and socially responsible manner, and that includes recognizing and not perpetuating historic environmental injustice against underserved and overpolluted communities. And also, we recognize that all disposal methods have negative impacts. So we are aiming to modernize materials management so that we can keep recoverable materials, that is, those that can be reused or recycled, out of the trash or the waste stream. So some people don't even like to use the word waste stream because really it's a bunch of materials, and let's try and find opportunities to reduce how much we're considering waste. Which of these goals are the most important to you? I want you to think about it, and you'll have a chance to answer that in the survey in a few minutes. So let's go to the next slide. And at a very high level, I'm just going to say how our county currently manages solid waste and materials, but know that you're going to get more details on all of these aspects. So residents and businesses separate recyclables. You're probably all aware of that. And kudos to you. Most of you are doing a tremendous job of one of the most important things that each of you can do to reduce the impacts of waste. And that is separate out your recyclables for collection and hopefully also reduce your consumption where possible and reuse items. So again, trying to keep things out of the trash if we can, because there are going to be impacts if we put things in the trash can. So nevertheless, there will be some trash. And for that, you have collections. Um, After the county collects your waste, it is sent to an incinerator in the county where it is combusted, and there's some air pollution, and what is also left is ash. That ash is sent via rail to a landfill in Virginia, a landfill where there are currently environmental justice concerns. So I know some of you have raised this. It's something we've been thinking about, and we should and can do better going forward. With that, you can go to the next slide. And I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Eileen. Eileen, you can introduce yourself and share with the group what is aiming for zero waste.
Thanks, Jennifer. So I am Eileen Kao, and I head up the Waste Reduction and Recycling section that is part of the Zero Waste Programs Division within the Department of Environmental Protection. So you're going to hear quite a bit, and hopefully you've already heard about our goal to aim for zero waste. And in terms of what that means, truthfully, this is our overarching goal in terms of solid waste management or sustainable materials management. Our goal is for everyone living, working, visiting Montgomery County to reduce waste further, to reuse as much as possible, and to recycle more, striving for zero waste. Excuse me. So what's shown in this slide, the inverted triangle, is our waste management hierarchy. And so at the top, we go in priority order. Our highest priority is to reduce waste. That is to cut down on the amount of waste that's generated to begin with. And then out of what is generated, we want to make sure that everyone is using, reusing items and materials over and over again to delay or stave off the need for disposal. This reuse really tries to extend the useful life of items, goods, and materials. But when things do reach the end of their useful life, we want to make sure that folks recycle everything that's possible to recycle and that they compost everything that is able to be composted. So these are the top 3 tiers of our waste management hierarchy. And we have a whole host of programs. The county has developed a wide variety of programs and quite a number of different programs to enable, to provide opportunities and to enable residents in single family homes, residents in multifamily apartments and condos, and folks that own, manage, work in the businesses, in the nonprofit organizations, and in the government facilities that are located here in Montgomery County. So, to give a sampling of some of those initiatives and programs for waste reduction, we have our Food is Too Good to Waste education campaign, for example, which hopefully folks have seen and heard. And, it's really trying to provide education, advice, guidance, tips to everyone on different ways to reduce the amount of waste that occurs with food. We also have our reinvigorated Bring Your Own Bag law that recently, as of January 1st, was in full effect. That's one of the ways that we really are greatly impacting and trying to get everyone to reduce waste by using things that alternatives that are better for the environment and that actually don't create waste. So bring your own reusable bags, for example. Also, I would say we've got other initiatives that we've implemented, including banning of polystyrene in Montgomery County. Polystyrene food serviceware is banned, and instead we require any retailer, any food service businesses to go ahead and if they are providing any food and food serviceware, go to reusables or provide options that are recyclable or compostable. We recently have launched our mending labs, and later this spring we will be launching repair clinics where we are having volunteers who are very skilled in either mending clothing, for example, or repairing electronics and other items. And they have volunteered, and we're setting up these clinics and opportunities where they will share their expertise and help teach others how to repair and mend different items, again, to extend their useful lives. And then we have our home composting, backyard composting, and on-site composting programs through which we provide a lot of education and technical assistance to help folks living and working in the county to manage yard trim and food scraps also at the source or closer to the source. Our reuse programs, we've got a number of wonderful opportunities that we want everyone to take advantage of. For example, we have our Don't Dump, Donate program, where anyone that has any building materials or items that are still usable, someone else might treasure those items, they can bring them to us at the transfer station and actually donate those items, and other residents and nonprofit groups can come and peruse, and if they can use those items, they're welcome to do so. We're also working to try and increase donations of edible food. Anyone that's got excess edible food, we really want to do more and encourage increased donations of that edible food to food assistance provider organizations that can then provide those to our neighbors that still are living with food insecurity and still have unmet needs. We have an entire array, a huge assortment, variety of recycling programs. Everything from single family curbside collection of recyclable materials to technical support, assistance, guidance, to multifamily apartment and condominium properties, as well as to businesses and organizations and government facilities so that they set up strong, successful recycling programs on site. So you will hear a little bit later more about advanced waste processing, so I won't cover that, but if we can go to the next slide. You may be asking, how are we doing? Well, we are doing all together, everyone living and working in Montgomery County, all told, we are really doing very well. We have these opportunities, and people living and working in the county are taking advantage of those opportunities and are recycling quite well. But as you can see from the data in this chart, there is still room for improvement and room for us to still increase our recycling achievement. So while we have a lot of programs, we continue to develop new programs and add more programs and offerings and opportunities to everyone. But we need your help. We need everyone living and working in the county to do their part and take advantage of these opportunities and reduce, reuse, and recycle more. And through those efforts, we are going to make much more progress towards zero waste. And together we will achieve even greater things. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Mr. Willie Weiner, who will introduce himself and go through the next series of slides.
What, real quick, Eileen, before we turn things over to Willie, we had a couple of questions come in about recycling, if we can have you answer those.
Sure.
One was the percent of plastic recyclables that are recycled. This figure is 10%. That's the recycling rate for plastics.
That is so. Yes, that data, and it gets a little complicated. So that might be a question that we're going to need to get back to
Okay.
folks on. But I will tell you, it's a very complex methodology that the department utilizes to look at all of our waste, look at all of our recyclables, and to come out with the current recycling rate by these specific materials or commodity types. So it is a little complex. So I think we should probably get back to folks on that.
Okay. And also, there was a question about this idea of getting to zero waste when a lot of packing material like food, packaging, household items, styrofoam is not recyclable. Can you just talk a little bit about zero waste versus aiming for zero waste and how we get there with those items?
Sure. I guess one thing that I should share with everyone is the county is very much involved in looking at packaging and trying to affect changes, shifts in packaging materials. Again, so that everything is that is utilized is actually sustained in a kind of a waste minimized way, and that any materials used for packaging are sustainable materials. So we are embedded and we are on the state of Maryland's EPR, which is Extended Producer Responsibility Advisory Council. And we are, as a state council, really looking at the whole issue of product packaging and the materials used to package. So that is also an initiative that we are involved with and that is underway. Because yes, we really do want to see packaging minimized to the greatest extent possible. And then the packaging that is used, we actually would like to see more packaging that is reusable, refillable. I don't know if you remember back in the 50s, I think it was, that milk was delivered to households in glass bottles. And then when they brought the new bottles of milk, they would take the old empty glass bottles and they would sterilize those, clean those very well, and then refill them with milk and deliver again. So that is an area that that we are definitely working on.
Very good. Couple more questions in there, but in the interest of time, let's move on to Willie for now. And folks, we will have time at the end for some of these questions, and we will also make sure that they get answered and posted to the website. Willie?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Hi, my name is Willie Weiner, and I'm the chief of the Recycling and Resource Management Division. And I will provide you with an overview of the Montgomery County's integrated waste system. Our system includes the curbside collection of trash and recycling, the acceptance and processing of that material at the transfer station at Shady Grove in Durwood, and then the final processing of materials at the three different locations. One is the recycling center, which is located at the same transfer station. The other one is the yard waste facility in Dickerson, and the resource recovery facility also in Dickerson. Maybe Samantha can help me with pointing to the different locations. If we can start with the transfer station in between Rockville and Gaithersburg. There you are. That's the Shady Grove transfer station where we receive all the recycling and trash. And then if we move west to the left to Dickerson, we have the yard waste facility and resource recovery facility right there. Let's move the cursor to the one below that. That's site 2, and site 2 right there to the left. Yeah. And site 2 is a permitted landfill that hasn't been developed yet. And then if you move the cursor to your right, we have the beauty spot, which is in Poolsville, where on Saturdays we accept bulk material, no metal material, but bulk material from the residents at no cost. That site is open from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. on Saturdays only. So let's start a little bit with the why of the colors on this map. We have the green color that depicts Subdistrict A, and the blue color that depicts Subdistrict B. And those subdistricts, the difference between the two subdistricts is that at Subdistrict A, the county collects trash and recycling curbside, but on Subdistrict B, the county only collects the recycling materials and not trash. So let me give you a little bit of history, I guess, on the formation of these subdistricts A and B. So this subdistrict structure is a legacy from the mid 20th century, 1950s. At that time, the areas that did and did not receive county contracted trash collection service were more distinct, as you can recall, in terms of population density and land use. Today, those areas are, in many of these parts of Subdistrict A and B, are more similar to each other, but we still continue with the same system of collecting trash and recycling in Subdistrict A, and trash only on recycling only on Subdistrict B. In terms of number of homes that receive curbside collection, in Subdistrict A, we collect from 93,835 homes, and in Subdistrict B, we are collecting from 130,080 homes. We're not collecting from any of the incorporated municipalities like Rockville, Gaithersburg, Ladonsville. They have their own collection systems. So basically, the county system for curbside collection is we're collecting from basically 223,915 homes. And if you count just to give you the order of magnitude of what we service on a week, just in a week, we are collecting over 550,000 individual collections in the county. You can you move to the next slide, please? So in this slide, what we are focusing only is on the accepting and processing of trash at the transfer station in Durwood, and how that trash is being moved to the final destination at the Dickerson at the resource recovery facility. So we start with number one, which is the Durwood station, where we are accepting the trash. Then that trash is being processed and loaded into containers, rail containers. A train that is operated by CSX moves about 46 rail cars every day, double stack containers, so that's 92 containers, and take them 18 miles to the resource recovery facility in Dickerson. When the train arrives, cranes are unloading the rail containers and putting them on yard jockeys that take them to number two, which is the pit, basically at the resource recovery facility. That pit has a large capacity, over 15,000 tons of capacity. From the pit, cranes are collecting or choosing basically the portions of trash that they are gonna deposit into 3 boilers. Each one of these boilers has a capacity of 600 tons of incineration per day, for a total of 1,800 tons a day for the facility. Once the material goes into the boilers, they're being burned at a high temperature, and the water that is boiling produces steam, which feeds a turbine. That turbine produces about 53 megawatts of energy that is being put back into the grid, generating revenue for the county. Then from there on, by the way, those 53 megawatts can potentially feed about 37,000 homes. From that point on, there is a series of air quality systems, and the final product there of the facility is 23% of ash, basically, or these days we are generating about 130,000 tons of ash. That ash is being sent by rail to a location in right outside Richmond, Virginia, called Old Dominion, and it's being deposited on what they call the Westfield at the landfill, which is separated from the regular MSW landfill. And of course, the rest is steam and gases that are released from the stack. So that's the process that we are currently using. We are going to be talking about other choices in the next slides. So I believe the next slide, Samantha, is a poll.
Yeah,
So
we're going to do a poll.
Go ahead.
Yeah, but it just real quick, Willie, one of the questions that came in was kind of an easy one. I wonder if you could just explain what you mean when we say the term resource recovery. What does that mean exactly?
The resource recovery facility is basically the formal name of the incinerator.
And
but that's a name that is being given by Montgomery County to the facility.
And just speak a little bit for a second to the resources recovered, as the name suggests. I think that's the question is, what does that
Yeah,
term mean?
yeah, and basically the resource that is recovered is the energy that is being um, converted into electricity, and then at the end of the process, we are recovering metals from the ash. Those metals then are being sold and generate revenue also for the county.
Very good. We have a lot of questions that have come in, but what we want to do here now is pause for a second and ask you all a question. I'm going to launch a poll to the screen, and we're going to ask, which of the following matters to you? They're up on the screen. These are those goals of the solid waste management plan for the county. I know you probably care about all of them, but if you had to just pick one, what's the most important one? We've got reliable operations, affordability, environmental justice, environmental protection, and maximum waste diversion. And I'm just going to leave this here for another maybe 15 seconds to give you all a chance to respond and tell us what matters to you most. Okay, very good. And looks like environmental protection is uh, our top winner with 55 out of 113 of you listing that one first, followed by a very close second, maximum waste diversion and reliable operations, followed by environmental justice with affordability coming up on the end there. Thanks for sharing that, y'all. And at this point, let's keep going forward to the next slide. And if that poll is still up on your screen, there's a X at the top. I think it's a red X. If you click that, you'll exit out of the poll. And is this you, Jeff?
Yes, this is. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, you sound great.
Great. Okay, thanks, Samantha. The next set of slides, we're going to talk about the options that are really in front of the county. And really what we're talking about is things we want to do with our residual waste after, on top of all the things we're currently doing that Eileen talked about with, the efforts to reduce, reuse, and recycle. Currently, everything that is remaining, our mixed solid waste, uh, goes to the resource recovery facility, the incinerator that Willie just described. And, we're really at a crossroads where we need to make a decision whether we want to continue with that current system. And we're calling that on this slide here, option one. Continue with that current system for the long haul. I mean, for the long term, I'm sorry. And what that really means is, we have a contract in place that goes for another 5 years. To continue through the next 5 years, we need to make significant investments to do, immediate refurbishment that need to take place just to get it through that short time period. And right now, there's budgeted $31 million over the next 2 years to keep it operating through 2031. If we wanted to use it for the long term, um, we would be looking at reestablishing that contract and doing major refurbishment of the incinerator to really allow it to last, somewhere in the neighborhood of 20, 25, 30 years. So we could do that, and other jurisdictions had. It really will lock us into that as our solution for the long term. Our engineering estimate to make those significant upgrades at that point are in the neighborhood of $356 million, which we would then finance and spread out over the life of the facility. So really that's our first option, is to stay with the status quo, and really put a significant investment into the resource recovery facility for the long term. The second option is to transition away from the resource recovery facility and initially start to haul all of that waste away to landfills. We call that option two a long haul option. That option would also, by closing the incinerator, that would also open up the opportunity to use the county owns facility to do food composting, food scrap composting. Um, Ideally, we'd like to use the same site that we use yard trim, uh, where we compost yard trim. There's already a footprint there, and the upgrade and use of that facility is like the most advantageous choice for the county. So option two would be to long haul waste to a landfill and start food composting to start to reduce even further the amount of waste that we are hauling away. Now nobody wants to be long hauling significant volumes to landfills for the long term, and we would hope that this option two would be a bridge to other ways of reducing our waste footprint and the amount of waste that would end up in a landfill. So that takes us to option three. So option three would build off of option one. Excuse me. Option three would build off of option two. And while we have started to do long haul, we would start taking steps to implement advanced waste processing in the county. And what that would be would, taking that mixed solid waste and, doing everything we can to recover resources and minimize the amount of volume that we are sending to landfills and implementing all the other things that Eileen talked about to reduce the amount of waste that's ending up in our waste stream. Next slide, please. So talking a little bit more about advanced waste processing, really it's just another step, but a very important step in the suite of tools we have to help us get to zero waste. So, we are implementing programs to reduce and improve recycling of construction and demolition waste. The option three allows us to start adding food composting to the yard trim facility as well. And then everything that's left after we do those things and all the other efforts for reuse, reduce, and recycling, we hope to feed into an advanced waste processing system that would pull out valuable resources. Eileen mentioned the great numbers we have for recycling, but there's significant volumes of materials that are left there that can be recovered and have value. So advanced waste processing would use technology to identify those items as it goes through the system and pull them out, and we would send those to market. And whatever is remaining, the residuals would go to a landfill. And I think it's important to note that all of our options have residual waste. The current system with the incinerator, landfills, the ash, and even this system will have residual waste that will need to go to a landfill. Next slide, please. So again, advanced waste processing is really just a way to get at those remaining recoverable materials that are otherwise just going to a landfill or are currently being incinerated. Those include metal, glass, and plastic, and those all have market value that we would hope to recover. And additionally, even if we implement food composting, we know there's always going to be organics that remain in the trash. This can be anything from greasy pizza boxes to paper. All of that can be recovered and processed further for additional uses as well. So we would hope to recover the remaining organics from advanced waste processing as well. So those are the options in front of us. Continuing with the current facility, the resource recovery facility, or moving to a long haul as a bridge to advanced waste processing, which allows us to maximize recovery of resources.
So Jeffrey, a couple questions that came in for you.
Yeah.
One is just, do you know how much food composting is actually taking place now versus what is the opportunity, the theoretically possible?
Yeah, so right now we only have a few, we have pilot projects and we have places where people can drop off food. I'm not sure. I think Eileen or Kaylee, who's coming on next, can talk about that percentage. But I think in our overall waste stream that we are currently receiving, about 23% of the waste stream has organics. So that's the opportunity there of what we hope to get at, and we think that would be significantly reduced through countywide composting. and then further reduced through advanced waste processing.
And also, a question came in just about the options and wondering why not do all three?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think unfortunately all of these options are expensive. And we're going to talk a little bit later about the rate impacts, but all of these options take significant investment. There's no option, there's no path forward for the county where we're not going to make significant investments. It's either significant upgrades to the resource recovery facility or significant investments in long haul and advanced waste processing. And all of those are going to impact people's solid waste rates. And to do all of them together would be a massive, a very significant impact to those rates. So we have to, account for affordability and how much people can really afford to pay with those rates. And I think doing all those together would really become untenable.
Okay, very good. And I believe our next slide is another poll for you all. Given what you've just learned about advanced waste processing, we're curious how you feel about advanced waste processing as a part of that second and third option. And so your options there are I do not support, I might support with more information, I'm undecided, I'm likely to support, and of course, I definitely support. So where do you fall on that spectrum? And I'll give it a few more, maybe 15 more seconds to get a few more of you participating, see where we fall. I do see questions in here that I believe are going to get answered in the next couple of segments. And of course, we'll have time at the end to go through a bunch of these. And then, of course, the county will have an FAQ at their website. So what we have here is pretty good on the likely and definitely support, almost 30% each there. And then maybe a quarter of you maybe need a little bit more information. So very good. Like that. And who do we have next coming up? Next slide.
Yes, that's me.
Kaylee.
Hi, good evening. I'm Kaylee Lalaker. I'm the chief of the Zero Waste Programs Division at DEP. And I'm going to walk through some analysis that we have done to compare the three options that Jeff just outlined. Solid waste charges, you may be aware, appear on everyone's annual property tax bill. And these are charged to single-family homes, multifamily units, and non-residential properties. And these are the charges that fund our waste system. So to estimate how each of the options for our waste system in the future would impact these solid waste charges, we've done a projection of the solid waste charges over the next 6 years. So this table is showing the estimated solid waste charge for single family homes for each of the three options. So you can see option one, which is the option where we would keep our current incinerator system. This one includes those near-term and longer-term costs to repair and upgrade the incinerator that Jeff mentioned to keep it operational in the future. For options 2 and 3, which are the options that involve transitioning away from the incinerator toward long hauling or leftover waste to a landfill, this includes the cost for that transportation and disposal in a landfill, as well as the cost to construct the food composting facility. For option 3, that additionally includes some costs to add the advanced waste processing technology. So you can see in this table, this year, which was fiscal year 26, the bill that got sent in July, that charge was $388. For next year, which is fiscal year 27, you can see that staying with the incinerator option one is actually slightly more costly than the two options that include a switch to long hauling to a landfill, options two and three. The reason for that is that we are scheduled to make $17 million in repairs to the incinerator next year. And if we switched away from the incinerator, we would not need to do that work. So that's the reason for a little bit lower cost in fiscal year 27 for options two and three. And then looking farther out as we fully transition to long haul and add organics recycling and advanced waste processing, there are some added costs that would be associated with those additional services, and those show up in options two and three. And so by fiscal year 2032, option three, which is the one that has long haul composting and advanced waste processing, is somewhat more expensive than staying with the incinerator. If you look at the difference in terms of dollars, it's about $14 per year. So by fiscal year 2032, so it's the $526 versus $512. So that's about, equates to about $1 per month difference. So I think some, key takeaways from this, all of the options involve some increase in the solid waste charge over time, as we make necessary investments in our system and as overall costs are expected to increase with inflation. The difference between the three options is somewhat minimal by the end of this period. And so that's showing single family homes. If we can go to the next slide, we have two similar tables here that are showing the same solid waste charges except for multifamily units and non-residential properties. So each sector pays a different amount for solid waste charges, and this is based on their allocation of the overall cost of our system, which itself is based on how much waste they generate. So that's why you see, different numbers here for each of the different sectors. Multifamily properties pay per unit, and then non-residential properties pay based on their size and the type of business. So the charges you see here, just for example, for the non-residential properties, are for the medium generator category, and they apply to each 2,000 square feet of floor area. So, while the amounts are different between the different sectors, the pattern here is the same in that all of the options involve increases over time because of investments that we need to make in our system. Options two and three, where we transition to long haul, are less expensive than staying with the incinerator next year. And then by fiscal year 2032, adding advanced waste processing, option three, is somewhat more expensive because of that additional, waste diversion system that we would be adding to our system. Next slide. So an important goal that we have for our system is to move us closer to zero waste by minimizing the amount of trash that we have to dispose. And the county's already doing a lot on that, as Eileen kind of outlined. We have strong recycling programs, and through those programs, we're able to divert 365,000 tons of residential commercial material from disposal. We've compared how that may change under each of these three options. So, under option one, if we stay with the incinerator, we would continue with our recycling and waste reduction and reuse programs. Under option two, switching to long haul and adding food composting to the yard trim site, that would allow us to increase our recycling to over 405,000 tons by fiscal year 2032. And that would continue to increase over time as that composting program matures. With option 3, we would also add to that the advanced waste processing system, which would recover additional recyclables that are left over in the trash, and that would further increase our waste diversion. And so with option 3, altogether, we could divert 180,000 additional tons from disposal relative to what we're currently doing. Next slide. So how we manage our waste also has an impact on greenhouse gas emissions. And that applies to both incineration and disposal in a landfill. So incinerators emit carbon dioxide, which is a greenhouse gas, and landfills also emit greenhouse gases, primarily methane, which is generated when food and other organic materials decompose in the landfill. So we had commissioned a study last year, and that study found that disposing of our trash in the incinerator has roughly similar greenhouse gas emissions to disposing of our trash in and out of county landfill. However, if we add in the advanced waste processing and food composting with landfilling of the remainder, the greenhouse gas emissions are reduced relative to our current system pretty significantly. And that reduction would be the equivalent of avoiding burning over 230,000 tons of coal per year. And the reason for that is because of the additional recycling. So recycling reduces the amount of organic materials that are left to decompose in landfills. And then recycling also avoids greenhouse gas emissions that are associated with extracting raw materials to make new products because the recycled materials can replace those. Next slide. So we've also looked at environmental justice considerations for the options. And if you're not familiar with the term, environmental justice means equal protection from environmental and public health hazards for all people, regardless of race, income, culture, and social status. So an important part of environmental justice is to try to avoid adding additional burden to communities that are historically underserved, which can be measured by socioeconomic indicators, or adding additional burden to communities that have already been overburdened by environmental impacts historically. And that can be measured again by environmental indicators. So what we've done is we looked at the communities that would host our waste under the options. All of the options include some landfilling of our waste. As Willie mentioned, our incinerator produces ash at the end of that process, and that ash is disposed in a landfill. And then in the long haul scenarios, options 2 and 3, of course, we would be using a landfill to dispose of our waste. So we ran the landfill communities through an environmental justice screening tool that looks at the communities within 1 mile of the landfill and compares it to the average US community based on various indicators. So the way to read this chart, the orange bars here are showing the landfill that we currently use for disposing of our ash, which is in Virginia. And then the green bars here are showing the landfills that we would anticipate using if we switch to long hauling our trash to landfill. So those would be landfills we would use in options 2 and 3. So any bars here that are higher than that average US community line mean that that landfill community has a higher prevalence of that indicator than the average US community, and that may indicate an environmental justice concern. So what we can see here is that there are some significant environmental justice concerns with the communities surrounding our current ash disposal landfill. And environmental justice concerns are reduced with the landfills that we would anticipate using for long haul. And that was a key part of how we evaluated proposals that we collected for for the long hauling option. So this is important information regardless of the option that we pick. It indicates that, even if we stay with the incinerator, we need to work toward an alternative landfill option for our ash. Next slide. So finally, we also looked at the estimated traffic impact of the options. So currently, waste arrives at the incinerator in Durwood, and it's transported to the incinerator in Dickerson by rail. Under options 2 and 3, the long haul options, waste would instead be transported from the transfer station to out of county landfills by truck. So the way that would work, trailers would be preloaded with trash and staged at the transfer station. The trucks would come into the transfer station, hook up to the preloaded trailers, and then leave the transfer station to head to the landfills. So they would exit to Shady Grove Road and get on 370 and then 270 to exit the county. So long hauling our trash would initially require about 80 additional loads leaving the transfer station per day. And that traffic would begin at about 3 o'clock in the morning and would roughly be evenly distributed through 3 o'clock p.m. Another thing that we're doing that will mitigate part of this additional traffic is that we will be phasing out the receipt of large loads of construction material at our transfer station. There are other facilities in the region that they can go instead. So load that would apply to loads greater than 2 tons. And we anticipate that change would offset about half of those additional 80 loads that would be involved if we switch to long haul. And I believe next up is another poll.
We do have another poll. Kaylee, I wonder if you could answer. I'm going to pull 2 of these out. Y'all, your questions are amazing, y'all. Thank you so much for asking them. And I hope you notice that some of them are being answered as we go. You're thinking a little faster than we can speak. But back on the cost chart, Kaylee, does the cost chart take into account the sales of recyclables?
It does, yes. All of that is factored into the those rate projections.
Excellent. And another person was asking about the requirements for institutions like schools, hospitals, and nursing homes, the recycling requirements. They're noting a lot of plastics and paper are thrown away as a resident in the nursing homes. Just wondering, what's the requirements for institutions in the county?
Yes, so they would be also subject to our recycling requirements. So they would be required to recycle a core set of mandatory recyclables, just like other institutions, businesses, and residences in the county. And there's a list of those mandatory recyclables, which include paper and commingled containers and other materials. So they would be required to recycle.
Okay. So let's go on to the next poll question. I know somebody was asking this in the Q&A. Here's your chance to kind of weigh in. How are you feeling about options 1, option 2, and option 3? And as a reminder, 1 is the status quo. That's the incinerator plus long haul ash to landfill. That's what's happening now. Option 2 is closing the incinerator, additional food composting, and long haul leftover waste to landfill. And option 3 is all of option 2, plus building the advanced waste processing facility to even further reduce waste that's left over and sent to landfill. And let's give it a few more seconds. We've got about 46 participants, 46%, 50%. Looking like quite a bit of support for option 3. I'll just close it here at the minute mark. And yeah, so 72% of listeners are interested in option 3. We've got 21% that prefer the status quo. That's interesting. And then 7% for option 2. And with that, let's move forward.
Thank you so much, and thank you, Kaylee, for walking through all of that. Kaylee's not gonna leave, nor the other staff, because I know we've got a lot of questions, really great questions from all of you. But first of all, I want to thank you for sticking with us. We've got nearly 200 of you on the call, and as you can see, it's a county this large. These decisions are complex, and managing our waste management system is complex, but I'm excited to have this many of you interested in these discussions. We're doing quite a lot already, as you can see, to keep items out of the waste stream, but we do have continued waste, and we're at an inflection point and considering a change. Why now? What's driving this decision, you might ask? So first of all, a couple things. The current incinerator, which some folks have had concerns with from the start, and others did not, but it is now 30 years old, and just like your car or your furnace, any aging piece of machinery tends to have more issues, needs more repairs in order to extend their lives. And ultimately, if we were to stick with the incinerator as part of the waste management in the county, it would need a major investment to refurbish and allow it to continue longer term. And Kaylee went through what the cost of that would mean in order to continue its operation. Secondly, the contract is expiring with the vendor that operates the incinerator on behalf of the county. So if a decision is made to keep that incinerator in place, we will need to open up a process to request proposals and come up with a new contract, even if we choose to continue the same facility with a major upgrade. Or if we go to a phased transition to one of the new options that we've talked about today, option 2, option 3, we want to be able to ensure a seamless transition. And there are a lot of things that need to happen in that transition period. But we want to make sure that your trash is still reliably picked up from your curbside collection, and that everyone sees the same great service that they're used to. Next slide. So, as we discussed, we've got a couple things going on right now. We're in an open house. We've got the survey, and I'm going to show you the link to that in a moment if you haven't already responded to it. We'd like you to reply to that survey by Friday at 5 p.m. on March 13th. Secondly, the county executive is going to be including option 3 in the FY27 operating budget that the county executive is proposing to the county council later this month. Option 3, as a reminder, closes the incinerator, expands food composting, builds an advanced waste processing facility, at long hauls any of the residual waste to an out-of-county landfill. So in a matter of weeks, the Department of Environmental Protection expects to release a new request for proposals, which some people call an RFP, for advanced waste processing. This would get bids in and get us even more information about the cost and the design of such a system in case the council approves the county executive's operating budget. If the council does approve that operating budget this spring, then we would be prepared to sign a long-haul contract based on a separate request for proposals that DEP already opened in 2025 and has already gone through that process, but not yet signed the contract because we're waiting for the council to decide on the budget for 2027. Once a contract is signed, if a contract is agreed to by the council, we would also send termination of the incinerator contract. And then in FY27, which just for your awareness, the fiscal year for the county begins in July. So FY27 is July of 26 through July of 2027. We would start development of the universal organics composting facility. So if the council approves the county executive's budget, option 3, this would mean expanding the current yard trim facility that the county runs already and collects yard trim facility so that we could accept both food scraps and yard trim together at your curbside collections weekly, and then take them to that composting facility. We would also begin long haul operations in FY27. So again, FY27 starts in July of 2026. And we would begin diverting large loads, that's loads over 2 tons of construction and demolition debris. And there's more to come about this topic because we will want to make sure that everyone understands the rules and what is and isn't accepted for construction and demolition debris. So more to come on that topic. We'll be doing education and outreach to explain the change there. In FY 2028, which again begins July of 27, we would begin building the advanced waste processing facility, and it would be operational in FY 2029. Both the advanced waste processing and our expanded composting facility so that we could accept curbside collections every week around the county. So that's our timeline. You can go to the next slide. So,
And
another poll.
yeah, so Jennifer mentioned the desire or the plan for the county to do a lot of outreach, continuing a lot of outreach with this. It's a lot of moving parts, a lot of information. So we're curious, what is the best way to keep you informed of these 4 options? Making note that email requires you to, of course, sign up for the county emails on these topics. Regular mail being what comes through the postal service to your mailbox. Social media is the county's Facebook page, for example, or Instagram, and then meetings or webinars like we're having this evening. And of course, if there is another option that we did not offer here, you can drop that into the Q&A, or I also dropped into the chat the email. We're going to flash it up on the screen as well, so you can copy it down from there. But there is an email inbox that you can access. Jennifer will cover that in a second. Those are in the chat as well as the DEP website. And yeah, so it looks like email is the #1 for this group, followed by community meetings like we've had this week or this webinar, followed by regular mail with social media on the bottom. Back to you, Jennifer.
Thanks. You can go to the next slide. Okay, so how can you contact us? So first of all, we've mentioned the survey a lot of times. So if you haven't taken it already, you can go to this what is it called? QR code on your screen and take the survey. You can also find it on our website if you'd rather not use the QR code. We have the website here, montgomerycountymd.gov/DEP. That stands for Department of Environmental Protection. We also have an email, zerowasteinfo@montgomerycountymd.gov. So if you have additional input, and I know some of you have shared emails with us, some of you have been coming to advisory council meetings that we've had over the years and have shared information. We want to give others opportunity as well. So anyone who wants to share additional information beyond the survey, that's the best way to reach us and make sure that we see it as we think about the future of trash from Montgomery County. And with that, I think I'm going to turn it back to Sam. We're here to address your questions, as many as we can this evening, and then any that we can't get to, we will look to follow up in writing on the website and have additional opportunities as well if you found this a productive conversation and you're interested in engaging with us further on this topic. But thank you so much for sticking with us this long, and back to you, Sam.
Yeah, thanks, Jennifer. So, folks, we've got another 20 minutes here to tackle these questions if you want to hang out with us. Otherwise, you're free to go, and you can, as Jennifer said, use this email to get questions answered. Check out the website. Can't promise the recording will be posted tomorrow, but for sure next week it'll be up there. But let's take some time here to answer some of these. One of the ones that I'm just seeing that came in recently, are there plans for countywide curbside compost pickup? Seems like that's been in pilot phase for a while. What's the time frame for that?
Yeah, thanks for that question. So we agree that composting and food scraps, expanding composting for the county for food scraps is really important environmentally, and we think it's great that folks are already using the pilot and the drop-off centers around the county and are interested in doing more. And we are looking into curbside collection of those food scraps combined with your with your yard trim, so that you could put it out together. Some of these options that were talked about today kind of explain some of the interactions between our ability to do that and use the compost facility, the yard trim facility, and make the changes needed to accept a larger volume and to accept the food scraps. So if the county council were to approve the county executive's budget request, then we would move forward with option 3. And we would be building the expanded compost facility, and it would be fully operational in FY 2029. Again, that begins July of 28 through July of 29. And we would be doing curbside collections for everywhere that we are currently doing recycling and yard trim collections.
Okay.
Thanks.
Someone was asking, they heard that there is a contract with the incinerator, and that, of course, means that the county doesn't own it. So the question was, is there some other party that's also using the incinerator?
Well, why don't I start this one, and I'll ask Jeff or Willie to elaborate as needed. So the current incinerator is run by a contractor through the Northwest Waste Management Authority. Did I get that right, Jeff?
Northeast Waste Disposal Authority. It's a regional authority, and which is I guess a quasi public entity. It's like a tool of the state.
Yeah, you can finish the answer.
Okay, so it's technically it's owned by the Northeast Waste Disposal Authority, who manages it on the county's behalf. And the operator of the facility is a company called Reworld that is under contract to the authority. However, they do it on our behalf, and we would take ownership of that property and remaining facilities should we end that arrangement.
Okay. Couple questions in here asking, can you just confirm or clarify the cost of building the advanced waste processing facility?
So the rate impacts are included in, maybe you can go to the rate impact slides. And Kaylee, can you elaborate on the cost of that?
Sure. So we would anticipate that facility would be online by fiscal year 29. And so you see that there's for option 3, you can see the increase between fiscal year 28 and fiscal year 29. So that's basically the magnitude of that impact for a single family home of the additional cost for advanced waste processing. One of the things that we are looking at if we do pursue advanced waste processing is to do that through a public-private partnership. And in that type of scenario, the county wouldn't be taking on the upfront construction cost for that facility. We would contract with a private company that would do that, but then we would pay a per ton fee to that operator, that private operator, for the processing of our waste. So that cost is not necessarily a capital cost to us to construct the facility, but there is an additional cost that we would pay to the company for each ton of our waste that we send through that advanced waste processing facility to recover more waste.
Okay. There was a question here, just another clarifying question that someone said, I thought the ash was sent by rail to landfill, but I'm hearing you're calling it long haul. And you mentioned there was long haul trucking for options 2 and 3. So the question is the ash also considered long haul?
So the ash is currently sent by rail to the landfill in Virginia. Because it is out of county, out of state, that's where the use of the term long haul. But it's not long haul trucking in the case of the ash. It is currently sent via rail. Option 2 and option 3 are both beginning long haul trucking, although there is within the request for proposal, we also asked for information about options to transition to rail for option 2 or 3. So some of that is to be worked out into the future.
Okay. Someone's asking if any of the current recycling collections are going to a landfill or are they going to market? I added the last part for clarity.
Willie, do you want to address that about the markets?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I was answering questions here, but yeah, all the curbside collection of recycling ends up at the recycling center, at the transfer station in Derwood, and every single bit is being recycled. Of course, there is contamination that is included sometimes into the recycling material that is being put at curbside, and that contamination is separated from the recycling materials and sent basically to the transfer station, which then will go to the incinerator.
Okay. So there has been some conversation in the Q&A about the releases that have happened recently from the incinerator and just questions about what the county's plan is for that.
Yeah, thank you for asking. The Department of Environmental Protection put out a statement in December and another statement recently about emission exceedances that occurred at the incinerator. There's 3 boilers that each have their own air pollution equipment. That 2 of those boilers had emission exceedances in the past several months. All 3 of those boilers and units were taken offline at various points in time for overhaul, repair, inspection, and Unit 3, which is the unit that we reported an exceedance on in December, has since retaken the compliance test and is within permitted levels. So the repairs and inspections and changes at that unit that Reworld was the vendor undertook seem to have solved the issue with Unit 3. The other Unit 2 has gone through repairs and is waiting for testing. So we're hoping to have information that on that unit that shows that the issue has been fixed. and the other unit is also back from its repairs. The county nonetheless understands that this is of concern for residents, for people who live nearby. And we have independently hired someone to look into an environmental assessment of that exceedance, understanding how long it may have occurred, those types of questions, and what potential health impacts there could be. So we will be coming back to you once we have results of that assessment, but it is underway.
Couple more questions. These are just a variety of things, so I'll let you kind of quarterback these, Jennifer, to whoever you think. If metal items end up in the trash, are they extracted from the waste?
So I know that once they go through the incinerator and they end
Yeah,
up in ash, there's recycling through a big magnet. But I think we get some before that. So Willie, you can elaborate.
yeah. At the transfer station, we have magnets also to separate metals when the trash is being tipped on the tipping floor. So we are separating metals both at the transfer station and at the incinerator as part of the recovery of metals before they're being sent, the ash is being sent to the landfill.
And someone's asking about collecting the food scraps and wondering, are they going to be composted aerobically, meaning digested by worms and microorganisms to create soil, or will they be composted anaerobically, meaning burned?
Good question. We've got some folks who are steeped in this stuff, unintended. So so a couple things. Under the county executive's option 3 in the budget, the idea would be to expand the yard trim facility to accept food scraps. That would be a static aerated pile. So it would be, oxygen up through the pile, oxygenated, aerated, static pile. The advanced waste processing facility that we talked about, that would happen separately, and whatever's left in the trash. So you might still have some food scraps that maybe someone should have put in the curbside collection but didn't. That would come through the advanced waste processing, and that would not be the clean food scraps that you'd get at collections. It would be contaminated because it would be in the waste. So it might have things mixed in with it that you might not want to put in your garden, might not be safe. So any organics that come out of the advanced waste processing system would be treated differently. And that's one of the things that we are still looking into, will be part of the advanced waste processing request for proposals, is how to process any of the organics that remain and get sorted out through advanced waste processing.
Okay. Got a couple questions here about the environmental impacts of some of the activities that take place in the solid waste management process. One is, can you share what the difference is in the environmental impact of disposing ash versus waste in a landfill? Do we know that?
That's a good question. There are some differences. One difference is that typically trash will have organics in there, and that will create methane. Methane is a greenhouse gas climate pollutant, so it contributes to climate change. It's part of why we are really focused on the food scraps composting, and also the advanced waste processing to get the organics out of the waste stream before it gets sent to a landfill. Another difference is that the ash, kind of when you burn waste, some of the pollutants go into the air, some of the pollutants get concentrated into the ash. So that ash tends to have kind of a higher concentration of pollutants in it than you might find in sort of just a regular waste stream. So typically the ash is put in a special landfill called a monofill, and to ensure that the water doesn't get in there and separate out some of the pollutants and kind of to give it special attention. So that's another difference. I'd like to call on either Kaylee or Willie to elaborate if there are additional factors that I didn't mention.
No, I think you covered it.
Okay, thank you.
And then one of the other environmental impact questions is there much difference? Can you talk about the environmental impact differences between truck hauling versus rail?
Yeah, so any transportation, whether rail or truck, is going to have some air pollution, unless, of course, it is electrified. So there are some zero emission options in terms of electric truck or even electric rail. Although you know, those tend to have higher costs and be more of a challenge in a heavy duty vehicle like would be required in this situation. So Kaylee, I wonder if you can speak to, I know as part of the long haul RFP, we looked at some of the differences between rail and truck. If not, we can follow up on in writing afterwards. But if you had anything to elaborate on that.
Yeah, so you know, rail transport is preferable, you know, in the long term because it does have lower greenhouse gas emissions than transport by truck. So we did request in the RFP process that proposers give us a sense of whether they could transition to rail transport over time. So that would be something that we could consider if we transition to rail. You know, the fastest transition would be to use trucks to transport the waste to a landfill, but there is the ability to transition to rail, which would take a little bit longer because it requires investing in rail cars and things like that. But that is a possibility that would, you know, be able to further reduce greenhouse gas emissions.
Hey, question coming in about at the end of option 3 upgrades, say you've done everything there with option 3, approximately how much waste is still hauled to landfill at that point compared to what's collected at the start?
Yeah, good question. Kaylee, do you have that number? I know I believe it's in the 60s. 63%?
Yeah, so I'm not sure whether the person was asking percent or tons. So just to give you a sense, so that there's about 600,000 tons of waste currently that is incinerated in our incinerator. Option 3 with advanced waste processing and food composting would be able to remove and recycle about 180,000 of those tons. So that would leave about 420,000 per
Okay.
year.
As a reminder, as we're answering these with you all live, don't forget we are going to generate an FAQ based on what's been asked here, and it'll be posted at that DEP website probably sometime next week, I would guess. So you'll have to check in there. We still have a few more minutes. I have a question here about, do we know the cost of landfilling? Did you guys look at the cost of landfilling your own waste at site 2 and comparing what that would be to long hauling the waste?
Yeah, thank you for that question. So we did not calculate those costs, although it is a question that the council president had asked in a letter that they sent. The Site 2 facility, which is the in-county area that was previously permitted as a landfill, in theory could be combined with any of the three options. So either the current incinerator ash disposal, or option 2 or 3, moving away, closing the incinerator, and having advanced waste processing, or sending it all to a landfill under option 2. It would, so that could be an option in the future for any of those three options. It would take time to develop Site 2 into a landfill. One of the things that several residents and members of the county are aware of is that since that landfill site was permitted, it was identified as a sole source aquifer, or proximity to a sole source aquifer, for some of that area, which would be a complication for trying to develop a landfill there. So I think the way we have viewed it, and the county executive has viewed it, in terms of the proposal for the council to decide on this spring, is which of these three options is the right option for the county going forward. Any decision on whether Site 2 would be developed in county as a landfill would be for a future council and a future county government to decide.
You answered a couple more questions in that answer, so that works out great, Jennifer. Thank you. And that concludes our time with you all together tonight. I want to really thank everyone for their questions and for hanging out with us for this long. Any final comments from you, Jennifer?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank the DEP staff that has worked on this issue, and also on managing all of the county's materials and the waste for many years, and as a county resident, I feel like has done a really great job. And if you haven't ever been to the transfer station and seen it all in action, it's pretty impressive what's happening there, and all of the different types of materials that are found, that we can find new homes for, broken bikes and durable medical equipment that can be repaired and given to a new home. So I would encourage you to check out that transfer station if you haven't already. And I just want to thank all the Department of Environmental Protection staff that work on this program, and all of our recycling and reuse and repair and mending clinics and things. And then also thank you, Sam and the team at Raftellus, for your help with this community engagement. And last, thanks all of you for participating in this discussion, and sharing your thoughts on the survey, and sharing your questions here today. It's very helpful to us to get your feedback, because you're the most important part of this county, the people who live here. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good evening. That concludes the webinar.